Hello, everyone. My name is Chris McGowan. I'm the Principal Information Security Professional Practice Lead here at ISACA. Welcome to another ISACA podcast. Joining me today is Ivan Mans. He's the Chief Technology Officer and co-founder of Security Bridge. Hey, Ivan, how are you doing today?
Hey, Chris. First and foremost, many thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Really looking forward to having a chat with you today.
Yeah, so you wrote an article, an ISACA article. It's addressing SAP security gaps. Before we jump into that, I'd just like to get to know you a little bit so the audience knows you. So where are you physically located?
I born and raised in Belgium, so it's Europe. Been living there since ever, and still today.
Since ever.
I work. No, I have to say I do commute quite a bit because I actually work in Germany. So I have a drawback of doing a lot of traveling for my business.
How far away is that?
I think door to door, probably 650 kilometers one way. So it's quite a bit of a distance. Luckily, nowadays, after COVID, not every single week anymore. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, that's convenient, right? So I read your bio, and there's a few things that I thought were pretty interesting. So are you currently part of the national karate team?
No, not anymore. Not anymore, indeed. I was in my younger days. Not saying I'm that old.
Your younger days.
But
how was that?
Mostly the era before I went into securing SAP systems. So, as in that team,
we were young, right?
Takes over, and you need to set priority.
Yeah, I've got two children that are black belts in Taekwondo, so they love it, but they're getting a little worn out. Years of training or whatnot. So another passion of yours is British cars.
Yeah, true.
So do you own? Oh, wow. So do you own, I read that you drive a 1933 Le Mans. Do you actually own the vehicle?
Yeah, I do. I tell you, I was very lucky to become the new custodian of such a vehicle because these are very rare cars. And it's a true passion of me to really embrace, all technology. But, even despite, the car being very old, I also like the modern era. So it's really goes from pre-war to very modern.
Yeah, I think just even in technology in general, I talk about it all the time, having small children that they don't really understand how technology's changed in just like the last 10 years, how things are drastically different.
Yeah, that's
pretty interesting.
It's such a beauty to see how things evolve. Initially innovation goes very slow, but they make bigger steps, as time progresses. And nowadays, innovation is, if you're not innovating, it's completely outdated with years.
Every year it goes faster and faster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it's time to dive into the main subject here. So Security Bridge, how did you come to start Security Bridge?
Oh, yeah, we started about probably more than 15 years ago. At that time, I was a consultant working all across Europe, securing and a lot of larger organizations running SAP backend systems. And in my spare time, I started working on tooling to secure the deployment process for SAP software. As a side hobby, how I got into this business. And some of my customers back then, at that time, they really already adopted the software and they really started embracing it and embedding that into their daily operations. And that also made me conclude there's definitely an interesting business model into this. This is basically how Security Bridge has grown. We started off with one single capability, and today we are, a very well-known vendor in the space of securing SAP.
Wow. Well, congratulations on your success.
Yeah, thank you. But success not only goes to me, it goes to the entire team. Huh? So what started off as
a
two-man show is now, it's now a much larger organization.
It takes a village, right?
Exactly.
So speaking of SAP, can you give our audience who might not be as familiar just a little bit of I don't know if you want to call it a history lesson or just familiarization of what SAP is?
Yeah, I'm quite convinced, a lot of people would have heard about SAP. SAP is the market leader when it comes to ERP software. And I don't know the exact number by heart, but it's way more than 90% of all the transactional volume in today's world. It touches an SAP system. So it's a core component in many businesses. It's being used for ERP processes. It's being used for manufacturing, CRM, HR. There's so many different SAP products nowadays on the market. It's just an enormous offering. And the SAP technology stack itself is also very versatile. What started off with R3 became R2, which nowadays became S4. And there is the ABAP technology stack. There is a Java technology stack. But nowadays, SAP is also a cloud organization and offering a lot of SaaS solutions. And what we try to, bring with Security Bridge is a very simple and easily digestible solution that is able to secure all these different technology stacks by taking away all the complexity of security and making it, instantly actionable. So that is in very, very short what we do and how the SAP technology stack has evolved from almost a back-end island system in the organization to today an internet-facing backbone that supports the entire organization and all its processes.
Wow. So, speaking specifically on addressing security gaps, is that a complicated thing to do, or is it pretty much, like you said, it just what you guys do with Secure Bridge is just make it simplified to make it easier to do?
Yeah, no, we make it look easy, but underneath the hood, like the engine of a car, it is extremely complicated. And there's so many different elements why it's so complicated. It's a very diverse technology stack. If we look at an ABAP system, it's very different from a Java system, which also means that it has an entirely different attack surface. Now, we also, experience that SAP Security to a great extent is far less mature when we compare that to IT security. A lot of organizations, they've invested a lot into network security, but very often application security really lags behind. And the thing is, the crown jewels of an organization, they very often reside within SAP because it is the most important backend system. And a lot of IT professionals, they perceive SAP as a backend system, means it's an internal system. It probably needs less security. But what they very often forget is that SAP systems are connected to your vendors. They are connected to suppliers. They're connected to your end customers. You've got internet-facing gateways. You have web shops. Everything is interconnected. So the attack surface in reality is a lot larger than they think. And what we try to do with Security Bridge is we try to provide a holistic approach to security. We all know that, driving security to something to perfection is close to impossible. You can go from 0% to 50% with little effort, low-hanging fruit. You can go from 50 to 75 with a bit of an invest. But the closer you get to ultimate security, the more expensive it becomes, the more time-consuming it becomes. And with security, we went onto the journey by bringing customers from zero to hero in a very short time. Making it easily digestible. As an example, if we do an audit at any firm almost, we very often see that some of the core systems are not really patched properly. Very important patches. Things with a very high severity rating, it takes months sometimes to apply a patch. Patching is probably the easiest thing that you can do. But knowing which patch to apply, that's the complicated process in SAP. And this is exactly what we have simplified. Instead of sifting through which of the SAP security nodes need to be applied, it's readily there. You have an instant overview. If SAP releases a node, literally half an hour later, the organization knows what to apply. If there is a workaround, maybe apply the workaround. And besides patching, we do the same thing for threat detection, live monitoring. What happens in your SAP system? Who is accessing it? Where in the past you had to create playbooks, use cases. That's an enormous amount of work, which a lot of organizations, they always try to reinvent the wheel. And, we see the exact same problem across all SAP customers. Now, whether you're into manufacturing, you're in retail, or, the industry, any industry, they have the exact same software and they have the exact same problem. So we've industrialized the approach by making patching, monitoring, hardening, making your systems compliant against a security framework or, a legal requirement a lot simpler.
Yeah, so that allows basically different companies or organizations quick wins on trying to get their SAP security up to par, basically, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've worked in the patching field in the past, and it was in the past, and obviously it's changed, but just trying to get simple patches installed, you did have to jump through quite a few hoops because it wasn't as simple as just patching and then everything's okay. Yeah.
No, and that
so in that security.
SAP is that complicated. If you look at your mobile phone and, that software automatically updates because it only requires a quick reboot. Now, imagine you would have to reboot an SAP system or a farm of systems. That's going to take half a day. And knowing that, every single minute you're processing an enormous amount of transactional volume, equaling to a certain amount of dollars, it is very, very critical to patch SAP systems. So the downtimes need to be, kept to an absolute minimum. There's interdependencies, you apply a patch. SAP systems are not small. It drives so many different business processes. And you need to know exactly which of my business process would be affected by a patch. So you need to know where to test or what to test. And so, I fully understand also your experience in the past. Patching is not always an easy exercise.
And it's just honestly just one pillar of security.
Yeah, exactly.
But the continued monitoring and all that, I could see how it could be, complicated, and the more sophisticated, obviously, that you stated it costs more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with your company specifically, you guys help different organizations gain maturity, right, in the SAP environment?
Yeah, we do. And, very often it's an organization, they have either a audit finding that they need to start hardening their SAP systems, or they do acknowledge the problem themselves, but because they see it within their own system. Sometimes, an organization comes to us because they had a data breach. The first thing that we will always do is we would perform an as-is situation. We're going to validate how well managed your SAP systems are. Now, whether you're cloud hosted, whether you're on-prem, eventually it makes very little difference. And your attack surface is very, very similar. So we would install security breach. We would say, how well patched are your systems? But next to this, we also would validate how is your authorization setup. You got services exposed. There's so many different attack vectors that we can instantly scan, and we categorize those findings by what we call area of responsibility, because in SAP, you have an SAP basis team, you have an integration team, you have maybe a GRC team. So there will be different audiences that you're going to work with. And for each of those audiences, we will have a certain number of findings. And we're going to, and sometimes, when we do such a review or such an assessment, one of my guys recently, he had a good statement on that. He says, it's very difficult to tell someone's baby is ugly. because they've been taking care of this for many years very often, especially if you have a legacy to deal with. But you need to take customers on the journey to, step by step, make them more secure. And it's really always important to, it's not about finger points. You've not been doing your job for a long time because you've ignored patching. No, we understand how complicated patching is, and we're going to help you to, make your internal process way more efficient so that in weeks or months from today, you are in a much better shape. So that's a journey that
I imagine. Yeah, people probably get complacent, right? They, like you said, they get used to looking at that same baby.
Yeah.
And then it takes somebody looking from the outside,
yeah. But
you get someone looking from the outside.
I can also understand them. Sometimes why people, there's a thing like security fatigue. Now, imagine you would have to monitor an SAP system and you go to log sources, half of what you see is a red alert. You can have security fatigue in no time. And so what we then do is, you need to know what to look for. You need to look for events that are anomalies. And it's exactly this intelligence by not overloading security professionals with an enormous flood of events that may be security critical. You need to have the intelligence built in that will only surface those events that are really actionable. And as soon as you come to a state where you really come with hard facts, this is when you will also get the attention of, the security professionals.
Yeah, I can see that. Yet again, where I used to work, we'd have to, I worked in government, but the same thing applies for any organization. Worked on the SOC floor, had to report how many vulnerabilities or how many, things weren't patched. And all they hear is a number, and it doesn't really give the true picture of what's, vulnerable or what's, the meat, what's important. A lot of leadership just sees the 10,000 alerts. Yes, sir, but, what we really want to drill down is on these 5 or whatever it may be. So yeah. I think that communication is very important.
Absolutely. Just earlier today, I had a very interesting conversation with one of our customers. We've done an assessment on how secure is their code base, because code is a very important element when you talk about application security. And the code scan that we've executed had more than 10,000 findings, which is enormous. It's a very large customer. They have an enormous legacy code base, but you can't possibly fix 10,000 vulnerabilities in your source code. Now, you need to follow a certain, and a lot of these vulnerabilities will be 0 days. The only one that knows about it is, the people that ran the code scan. Now, a lot of these vulnerabilities will be very hard to identify. And we always say, don't start fixing this. It's going to cost you an enormous amount of money. You're going to spend an enormous amount of bandwidth of your resources, and literally your attack surface is only improving very, very little. Because a lot of these custom code vulnerabilities are very hard to detect, very hard to exploit. And, we have a certain strategy that will pinpoint those ones that you really need to mitigate. The ones that are easy to exploit, easy to identify. And while they build up that process to work on the right stuff, instead of working with a KPI, it's important that you also already combine that with monitoring capabilities, because you can't do everything in one day. We see most customers, they go on a journey with us for 1-2 years before they reach a certain maturity.
Yeah, everybody would like everything to be fixed immediately, but that's just not how it works. Not if you want it done correctly. Yeah. Because rushing through it, that's not going to really secure anybody's stuff. It's just going to probably cause more gaps than anything else.
Yeah, true. Although sometimes you can. Last week, I was at a trade show talking about how vulnerable is SAP. to the external world. And we just, on the trade show, we just done a live test. We've used something simple like a Google search, and we were looking for an SAP system that was publicly exposed. And it took me about 2 minutes, and I found it was a university in the UK. They had a portal that was publicly exposed. And, live on stage, we also validated, is that system properly patched? Now, there's a few ways in SAP you can see how systems are patched. And we've tried that. And indeed, it was not properly patched at all. It was a super old system, super weak, and it would take any pen tester, it would take them 5 minutes to extract critical data. This got reported to the university, and it took them half a day to fix it. And so sometimes you can fix things very, very quickly as well.
I think the key there is, from I say defensive aspect, it was really easy to find something, like you said, through a Google search. But take the offensive side of it, somebody looking to do something nefarious or, malicious. In that same amount of time, they could have, executed some kind of exploit and made it even worse.
That's true.
So putting that perspective, it's like, it's really easy to find something, but imagine if somebody, had that, was trying to do something bad, would be very just as easy. And that's I think that's kind of eye-opening.
It is eye-opening, indeed. Yeah. Because most of the things that we do in a pen test or in the system, audit, is not rocket science. Or a lot of the steps that we do, every single auditor on the planet that has SAP experience knows how to validate an SAP system. So it is not knowledge that is just contained with a few individuals. No, there's quite a bit of an audience that can actually do this. And probably Google is the best training manual. And, AI can be of a great help to build up such an attack plan for SAP systems, which is also something that we see today. It becomes easier and easier to get to come to the knowledge to approach SAP systems.
Well, when it comes to the security bridge, and, what do you see going on in the future when it comes to the SAP security?
Say again, I did not hear you.
When it comes to the SAP security, with your company or whatnot, where do you see it evolving or going to in the future?
I think the most important thing that we see in the industry is that, many organizations start acknowledging the need to secure systems that were earlier seen as less relevant. Because they were not really exposed. So the awareness is rapidly growing. And where we focus on with security breaches, we want to be the most complete solution, the easiest solution to be applied to, with the quickest ROI for an end customer, where, the invest, and there's always a bit of an invest into security system. Now you will need manpower, you will need tooling. And that needs to be validated with effective results. So we need to make sure that at all times we will bring visibility into these are the vulnerabilities any SAP system is exposed to. This is where you were, when the baby was still ugly. And, months to days after you've applied and you've incorporated security breach, this is where you are now. You've secured your system massively by doing these and these steps. So we want to bring that transparency. But I think most importantly is we want to keep up to date at all times. And, we want to be the leading vendor in that space by working on research, translating that research in detection capabilities, and bringing that tooling to make SAP security digestible for the masters of organizations that run SAP.
Ivan, before we get out of here, is there anything else you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, if we got people listening to this that do run SAP in their organization, please do validate whether you do have an SAP security program in place. And if not, definitely evaluate taking security breach on the radar. It should just not be a white spot being left unmonitored.
Okay, Ivan, thank you. Thanks Security Bridge, your company, for allowing you this time. If anybody's interested in the article, there'll be a link to go to it. And as I say in all the podcasts at the end, we all have to continue to learn, continue to share information, because that's the easiest way for us to be successful in our industry. So from now till next time, bye.